Morning and welcome to our annual Harassment Prevention Training. I'm Yvonne Davis, Senior HR Consultant with Luxa Enterprises, and I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this important training. Now, whether you're new to the team or have been with us for years, this session is designed to reinforce our shared commitment to maintaining a respectful, inclusive, and safe workplace for everyone. Today, we'll review what harassment is, how to recognize it, and most importantly, how to respond if you witness or experience inappropriate behavior. We'll also cover your rights, responsibilities, and the resources available to support you. Now, this training isn't just about compliance, it's about culture. Creating a workplace where everyone feels valued and protected starts with awareness and accountability. Now, let's get started. So, change starts with you building self awareness for a harassment free workplace, empowering individuals to foster respectful work environments. So, a little bit of reflection. As we go throughout this training, I want you to reflect on a couple of things. Number one, what does a healthy workplace look and feel like to you? And then I want you to consider what's one small action that you can take to contribute to a healthier workplace culture. Remember, culture is not built in a day, but it can be rebuilt every day. Let's start with the definition. What is harassment? Harassment defined as any unwelcome conduct based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, or genetic information. It becomes unlawful when enduring the offensive conduct becomes a condition of continued employment or the conduct is severe or pervasive enough to create an intimidating, offensive, or hostile work environment. So, what is a hostile work environment? Hostile work environment defined is created when harassing conduct that is based on a legally protected characteristic is so severe or frequent. Courts often use the term pervasive that a reasonable person in the employee's position would find the situation to be abusive. Now, there are different types of harassment: sexual harassment, unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. Verbal harassment, offensive or derogatory comments, slurs, or jokes. Physical harassment, unwanted touching, physical intimidation or assault. And visual harassment, offensive images, cartoons, or gestures. Now let's talk about sexual harassment. What exactly is sexual harassment? Well, it's unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal, written, electronic, or physical conduct of a sexual nature that affects an individual's employment, unreasonably interferes with his or her work performance, or creates an intimidating, offensive, or hostile work environment. Now, that's a lot of information. So, if you don't remember all of that, remember two things: unwelcome, unwanted. If someone's language or behavior is unwelcome or unwanted, they may be crossing the lines of harassment, whether intentionally or not. Now, there are two forms of sexual harassment. We have quid pro quo. Tangible employment action against the victim involves monetary loss or exchange in job. This is Latin for this for that, or tit for tat, this for that. Do something for me and I will do something for you. But if you don't do this for me, then I can make things here a little difficult and uncomfortable for you. We also have hostile work environment. This is speech or conduct that is severe and or pervasive enough to create an abusive or hostile work environment. In addition to speech or conduct, hostile work environment covers explicit or suggestive items that are emailed, texted, electronically provided, or displayed in the workplace that interferes with job performance or one that creates an abusive or hostile work environment. Now, who can commit sexual harassment? Employees at all levels, customers or vendors, members of the same or opposite sex. And who can be a victim of sexual harassment? Well, individuals or individuals targeted by statements or actions, bystanders or witnesses not directly targeted. What are some examples? Making inappropriate jokes or comments, sharing offensive images or messages, repeatedly asking someone on a date after being declined, making derogatory remarks about someone's background or identity. Now, let's talk about some of those myths as it relates to harassment in the workplace. So, for this section, we're going to cover and dispel some of the most common misconceptions. This is going to help us to ensure that we foster a respectful workplace for all employees. So, myths versus reality, understanding workplace harassment. Myth number one: sexual harassment only involves physical contact. Well, in reality, it includes verbal, visual, and nonverbal behaviors. For example, jokes, emails, gestures. Myth number two: if the harasser didn't mean harm, it's not harassment. Well, in reality, intent does not matter. It's the impact on the victim that's what counts. Myth number three: it's not harassment if it happens outside of work. Well, in reality, work related events, online interactions, and offsite conduct can still qualify. Myth number four: it's just flirting or harmless banter. Well, in reality, if the behavior is unwelcome and persistent, it is harassment. Myth number five: it only counts as harassment if it happens repeatedly. Well, in reality, one single severe incident can qualify as harassment. Myth number six: if it wasn't directed at me, it's not harassment. Well, in reality, even if unoffensive or offensive behavior targets a group or is overheard, it can still create a hostile work environment. Myth number seven: it's just flirting. Well, in reality, harassment is about power and discomfort, not mutual attraction. Myth number eight: ignoring it will make it go away. It'll just make it stop. Well, in reality, harassment often escalates if it's not addressed. Myth number nine: sexual harassment is always about sex. Well, in reality, it can also be about gender-based hostility. Now, sound off. What did I miss? Is there a myth that you can think of? Okay, so to determine whether conduct is sexual harassment, you need to know the legal definition of harassment. And we've covered that, right? But it also has to meet three common elements. It has to be unwelcome, unwanted, sexual, and creates harm. Now, take a look at each one of these. Unwelcome. For a behavior to be harassing, it must be considered unwelcome by the target or someone who works in the environment in which the harassment is happening. The person who finds the behavior offensive is not obligated to speak up. Someone could think the behavior is unwelcome and may even give the indications that they are fine with the behavior. Now, listen. Saying something is helpful, but it's not required to meet the unwelcome standard. Someone could think the behavior is unwelcome, and again, they may give indications that they are fine with the behavior. For example, they may laugh at the joke because they want to be part of the group. So again, because someone laughed at your joke, it doesn't mean that it wasn't offensive, right? And because someone doesn't tell you that they were offended, it doesn't mean that they weren't offended. Number two, it has to be sexual. If it does not have anything to do with sex, it's not sexual harassment. Laws typically define what's covered, but the best course of action is to assume that it's about sex. If it's about sexual behavior, gender roles, romantic gestures, gender identity, pregnancy, childbirth, and even sexual orientation. Now, I want you to fill this in based off of what you've heard so far. Your options: impact, intent, harasser, sexuality. Sexual harassment is defined by its blank, not its blank. Just give it a minute. What are your thoughts? Can you complete this sentence? Well, sexual harassment is defined by its impact, not its intent. And this is where we have to really be careful of what we say and our behaviors in the workplace. Even if you were just intending to be friendly, if you were offending to be funny, right? What is the impact that your actions, that your words had on your team member? So again, sexual harassment or harassment is defined by its impact, not the intent in the workplace. Now, this is one of those gray areas, flirting versus harassment. Flirting, smiling at someone you find attractive once in a while. Harassment, repeating the smiling gesture when the other person seems resistant or uncomfortable. Now, this is where we got to pay attention, right? So we're smiling at someone every once in a while, right? That's one thing. But if you're glaring, if you're doing a little too much, if you can clearly see that person is not interested, if every time you smile at this person, they're giving you the side eye, you might want to consider your actions. So be aware, this is one of those gray areas. Remember, it's the impact of your actions, not the intent. Now that you have the basics, let's cover a few more details. Concepts that generally apply to all protections. It doesn't matter if the conduct is between people of the same or different genders. Hostile or offensive is decided by the person who feels harassed or intimidated. And it doesn't matter whether you intended to create harm or not. Now, here are some other forms of harassment that can take place in a workplace. Posting sexually explicit photos that offend employees, telling sex related jokes or jokes that clearly demean people because of their gender, commenting inappropriately on an employee's appearance, requiring employees to dress in scanty attire, repeatedly requesting dates from a person who clearly is not interested, having strippers perform at a company gathering, or stating that people of one gender are inferior to people of the other gender or can't perform their jobs as well. Now, some of these may take you by surprise. And this is the importance of having this training so we can be well informed in our actions and in our words. Now, I want to go back to some of these. Telling jokes that demean people. Be very careful of what you say and how you say it in the workplace, and really consider if what you said needs to be said anywhere. Now, if you're doing some morning jokes in the break room or your water cooler chat, and the person that you're telling that joke to, they find amusement in it, but the person that walks up and they happen to hear your inappropriate jokes and they take offense to that, guess what? That is a form of harassment. If you're joking with the peer and saying, oh, women are so, they're just not well in these roles, they never perform well. Or if you're a woman saying, men are just so stupid, they're this, they're that. Guess what? That's based off of gender. Someone again is crossing the lines of harassment. So again, this is a time to be aware of what we say in general, but especially that we are being professional and respectful in the workplace. So we are not unintentionally creating offenses for our team members. Now, look, there's a legal responsibility. Employers are legally required to provide a workplace free of any form of harassment. Employees must comply with anti-harassment policies and report incidents. The handbook includes the full policy as well as ways to report these incidents if they are occurring. So you do have an obligation. If you see something, say something. We can't fix what we don't know is going on in the workplace. And certainly if you are someone in a leadership position, who maybe you're a lead, you're a supervisor, you're a manager, director, you have an obligation to report. Even if someone told you in confidence, even if it's not one of your direct reports, but someone that you just have a relationship with, and you're maybe you're that manager that employees kind of flock to. If you are notified of something happening in the workplace is not inappropriate, you have an obligation to report. And then retaliation against individuals who report harassment or participate in investigations is prohibited. Now, reporting procedures: report the harassment. Document incidents with dates, times, and descriptions. Follow up to ensure that the issue is addressed. And even if you are in a setting where multiple people witness the behavior, we still need you to report it. And let me tell you what often happens. We may have something that happens, and there's maybe five, six, even three other people around, and you're thinking, well, I don't need to report it because person A, person B, person C saw it. Maybe they're going to report it. What happens? No one reports it. So even if there are other people around, even if other people witness the same thing that you did, we still need you to document the incident with dates, times, and a description and report it. Now, you're probably thinking, what do I do if I'm accused? Well, immediately stop the unwelcome behavior. Write down what you remember and find any documents, emails, texts, calendar dates that may help clear up the situation. Sometimes you may want to consult with your attorney, but certainly consult with HR depending on the situation. Listen to the complaint. Stay calm and avoid retaliation. Participate in and cooperate with the investigation. Now, what we don't want you to do is to confront the accuser. It's intent versus impact. Remember, it may not have been your intent to offend someone, to harass someone, right? But it was the impact. What was the impact on that individual? So even if as humans, we want to defend ourselves, we want to defend our actions, we want to maybe confront that person, hold, right? We don't want to do that because that can make the situation worse. We don't want to be defensive or combative. We want to seek to understand first, then to be understood. And then we don't want to discuss the case with other people in the workplace except human resources, maybe your attorney, maybe your manager. This is a need to know situation. So we don't want you discussing these things openly in the workplace. Now, as I mentioned, we want you to speak up if you witness something, okay? Bystander intervention. Speak up if you witness harassment, even if you were not the only person there who witnessed it. We want to make sure that you are being a supportive team member. Support the person being harassed. Report the behavior to HR or to your supervisor or a supervisor whom you have a relationship or feel comfortable with. And then we want to make sure that you do your part. We are all encouraging a respectful and inclusive workplace. So take a stand, speak up, and take action. Now, there's different ways to address harassment when we see it going on in the workplace. We can address it directly or indirectly. We can call people out or we can call people in. Now, a public direct challenge with the intent of exposing wrongdoing, this is where we are probably going to call people out in the moment, okay? So when should we call people out? When someone needs to stop unacceptable words, behavior, to say explicitly that unacceptable words are not tolerated, to hold a person responsible in that moment, to prevent further harm by interrupting, and to lean into those tough conversations. Now, there's a couple of things we want to keep in mind when we call people out. Keep in mind power. Do you hold power over or relative privilege to that person? Find or be an ally. The burden is not on marginalized identities to defend themselves. Your own safety and self-care, both physical and psychological, consider that, right? Consider the safety element. Avoid escalating the situation and be mindful of your own emotions. Look, we got to check sometimes with ourselves to say, am I in the right headspace? Am I emotionally able to have this conversation in this moment? So always check your emotions before you engage in conversations in the workplace and certainly before you choose to call someone out. Keep in mind intention and openness. What was the intention behind the behavior? How open will the person be to change, to listening? right? And then keep in mind patience. Be patient with yourself and the other person, and do not respond in turn with hurt. Now, calling people out. This is an invitation to a one-on-one or small group conversation to educate about wrongdoing. Now, there's a time and a place to call some people out, and there's a time and a place to call people in. Okay. So when we're calling people in, we want to do this when there is a real chance to educate with kindness, to reach a mutual understanding, to explore different perspectives, to advance the conversation through reflection, not reaction, and then to lean into tough conversations in a compassionate space. Now, keep in mind when we are calling people in, practice humility. Speak only for yourself and avoid generalizations. We don't want to say, well, we all feel this way about you. And this is what we all think, right? I can only speak for myself. This is how I feel. I feel this way when you do say this. Okay. Refrain from assumptions. Do not assume their intentions. Never assume, always ask. And when we ask respectfully. Address the issue soon. Decide. Decide what format will be most effective. Do I have a one-on-one? Is this a small group conversation? Is it in person? Do we need to make this a walking meeting? Right? Set the expectation. Respect, listen, and learn. Describe the specific action or problem. Explain the impact it had. Find common ground, and then identify an outcome or goal. Keep this in mind when we're choosing to call people in. Now let's look at the data on the impact of intervention. 3 out of 4 employees that experience harassment at work never report it. When bystanders intervene, bullying, that abusive behavior stops within 10 seconds, 57% of the time. And then 1 in 4 bystanders who noticed harassment at work took no action. So here are a few key takeaways. Harassment is unacceptable and unlawful. Know the types and signs of harassment. Speak up and report concerns. Everyone plays a role in maintaining a respectful workplace. Now, let's talk a little further about your role, what it takes to ensure we foster a respectful and safe workplace. So, for this section, effective approaches to foster a respectful and safe workplace. Number 1, lean into your core values. This is your North Star. Okay, this is your North Star in the workplace. But what are core values? These are deeply held beliefs that guide your decisions, behavior, and interactions. Now, look, these are separate from the values of your organization. As organizations, they have their own set of values, which you should know those. But you also want to make sure that you can identify and name your own core values. Number 1, to ensure that those align with your employer of choice, but also know those because those guide your decisions, your behaviors, your interactions. It has an impact on the type of experience that your peers have when dealing with you. Now, as I consider my core values, it's faith, it's family, commitment, it's respect, compassion, integrity, right? Why is that important? Well, because I have to know how I am leading and engaging in the workplace. And at the very core of who I am, you should see my core values shine through. Now, why do these core values matter? Well, they guide your intentions. Values shape how you show up in conversations and collaborations, even in the midst of those crucial and difficult and courageous conversations. Create consistency, aligning actions with values. It builds trust and credibility, and it supports team alignment. Shared values foster unity and reduce friction. Now, as I mentioned, my core values, it's faith, it's family, community, compassion, integrity, respect. Now, again, those are important because those guide right? They're my North Star, so they're guiding how I am interacting with my peers. Now, listen, at the very core of who I am, you should see that compassion and respect shine through. But guess what? I'm human and I have good days and I have bad days. And some of those bad days, you may not see those core values shine as brightly as others. But guess what? That is on me, right? The sender of those messages during those moments. So, again, I want you to consider your core values because not only is your organization, is your leadership creating experiences for you, but you are creating an experience for everyone that you interact with on a daily basis. What kind of experiences are you creating? Now, we want to make sure that we use positive and respectful language. Language is a powerful tool that shapes workplace culture. Leaders who consistently use positive and respectful language set a tone of inclusion and trust. Now, this involves choosing words that uplift and affirm rather than diminish or alienate. Avoiding sarcasm, dismissiveness, and loaded terms is essential to maintaining a respectful dialogue. Practicing active listening and responding thoughtfully demonstrates that all voices are valued. When leaders model respectful communication, it encourages others to follow suit, reducing the likelihood of misunderstandings and conflicts. This strategy is especially impactful with diverse teams where inclusive language fosters belonging and psychological safety. Now, we want to make sure that we are showing compassion. I often get the question, how does love show up? Is there a place for love in the workplace? What does love have to do with it? Well, as it relates to the workplace, it shows up in the form of compassion. Compassion is about understanding and responding to the emotional needs of others. It's not a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of courageous empathy. People who show compassion take the time to understand their team members' experiences and challenges before making judgments. Because guess what? As humans, we tend to judge what we don't know or what we don't understand. Now, this approach fosters a supportive environment where individuals feel seen and heard, asking questions like, what might this person be experiencing? Right? Being able to ask those questions, it helps you to respond with empathy rather than criticism and judgment. Compassionate individuals, leadership, team members reduce defensiveness, encourages openness, and strengthens interpersonal relationships, all of which are critical in preventing harassment and promoting a respectful workplace. Show appreciation. Appreciation is a powerful motivator that enhances engagement and morale. Leaders and team members who regularly recognize and celebrate their team members' contributions create a culture of respect and gratitude. This involves acknowledging both the small wins and the big wins, significant achievements, expressing thanks, and making recognition a consistent part of our everyday practices. Appreciation counters disengagement and fosters a sense of value among employees. When individuals feel appreciated, they are more likely to contribute positively to the workplace culture and uphold standards of respectful behavior. Sharing stories of how appreciation transformed team dynamics can illustrate its profound impact on creating a harassment free environment. And then psychological safety. Psychological safety is the foundation of a healthy and inclusive workplace. It refers to an environment where individuals feel safe to speak up, ask questions, and express concerns without fear of retribution. Leaders and team members play a crucial role in fostering this safety by encouraging open dialogue, welcoming feedback, and responding with curiosity rather than criticism. When team members feel psychologically safe, they are more likely to report inappropriate behavior, share ideas, and engage fully in their roles. This openness is essential for identifying and addressing harassment early. Okay, so we want to make sure that we are fostering psychological safety. Now, look, this is not just for your company to ensure that you are psychologically safe, right? Your well being, but this is for you as a team member to consider, am I psychologically safe for others to engage with? Is it safe for others to disagree with me respectfully? Is it safe for others to question me, to ask the why? We also have to be psychologically safe as team members. And then be mindful of how you show up. This is so important. Being mindful of how one shows up means recognizing the energy and attitude brought into your everyday interactions. As Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor states, you are responsible for the energy you bring to the room. This awareness involves checking one's mindset before meetings, approaching conversations with intention, and leading with calm and clarity. The energy that a leader and team member projects can either elevate or diminish the team's morale. By cultivating a positive and intentional presence, leaders set the tone for respectful and productive engagement. Encouraging self reflection and mindfulness practices can help you maintain this awareness consistently. So remember, you are responsible for the energy that you bring to the room every time. So, final word, change starts with you. This closing slide is a call to action. It reinforces that leadership, that your actions, it's just not about policies, it's about your presence. Okay. I want you to truly reflect on how you show up and the energy that you are bringing to every interaction. Remember, your presence shapes the culture. Every word, action, and emotion contribute to the environment that you create. Be intentional, be compassionate, be courageous. Remember, you're responsible for that energy. Engage with purpose and inspire a harassment free workplace. And also be willing to rebrand yourself. Okay. So, reflection. This is what we started out with, but hopefully, throughout this training, you've put a few tools in your toolbox to make you a better you and to show up better for your people, your team members. Now, again, what does a healthy workplace look and feel like to you? What's one small action that you can take to contribute to a healthier workplace? And remember, culture is not built in a day, but it can be rebuilt every day with intent and with purpose. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful day.